Well, are you smiling like a robot? The word sliced through the air, unfiltered and sharp, landing like a slap. The man's voice, loud, clipped and unapologetically cold, cut through the silence at the register. Meera blinked, fast and instinctively, as if trying to shake off the sting. Her fingers, slightly trembling, reached for the thin thermal paper of the receipt. "I'm sorry, sir," she murmured, voice barely rising above a whisper. Her lips pulled into that well-practiced curve, the kind expected of her, conditioned into her over months of forced pleasantness. But her eyes, those weary, red-rimmed eyes, refused to play along. They were drained, not just from lack of sleep, but from something deeper. The man scoffed and turned, muttering something that dripped with contempt, disappearing into the stream of aisles without looking back. Meera turned to the next customer, still smiling, still performing, like a wind-up doll with no off switch. Across the aisle, a man stood still, half shielded by a row of canned beans. He wasn't reading labels. His gaze never left her. Hidden under an unassuming plain jacket was Jackson Grayson, founder, CEO, a man whose name meant something once. But today, he wasn't here to be seen. He was here to see. There was no clipboard in his hands, no PR team trailing behind, just silence and a growing storm in his gut. He had received the message 3 nights ago. No subject line, no signature, just a single chilling sentence. "In that store, smiling is a punishment." Jackson read it once, then again, and again. It wasn't a complaint, it was a warning. Reports had shown everything was stable, inventory clean, sales solid, turnover low. On paper, everything looked fine. But now, watching Meera, the way her smile moved independently from her eyes, how her fingers clutched the scanner like a lifeline, he knew something was off. Deeply off. He remembered what smiles used to mean. Back in the early days, before the title, before the layers of management and metrics, Jackson had walked the floor, called regulars by name, handed out samples himself. Smiles back then were real, born from connection, not fear, not obligation. But this was survival masquerading as hospitality. He closed his laptop the moment he read the message. No hesitation. He slipped off his designer watch, grabbed a faded jacket from behind the office door, the same one he wore the day he opened his first store, and walked out. No assistant, no entourage, just him. If something was fractured beneath the surface of his legacy, he had to face it with unfiltered eyes. And today, he stood in it. Each footstep felt heavier than the last as he crossed the parking lot. His mind wrestled with the possibility that his dream, this empire built on trust, sweat, and loyalty, had begun to hollow out while no one was watching, including him. Jackson Grayson hadn't always been a CEO. He was once just a boy with frozen fingers wrapping cold cuts behind a deli counter. He'd scraped his knees hauling second-hand shelves into that first shop. Built it on a simple belief: take care of people and they'll take care of everything else. That belief built more than stores, it built trust, communities. And yet, somewhere along the road paved by progress, smiles became part of a brand, scheduled, scripted, sanitized. Jackson leaned against a cold pillar near the entrance, watching a world he'd created but no longer recognized. He tugged the brim of his cap down and stepped inside, heart pounding, not from fear, but from guilt. The break room hummed with the weak buzz of fluorescent lights. Rows of chipped lockers lined the back wall like quiet witnesses. Meera moved quietly, her body shrinking as she opened hers. From inside, she pulled out a small folded piece of paper. Crayon lines, crooked little hearts, a shaky stick figure with messy hair. Above it, scrawled in bright red, "You got this, Mom." She smoothed it with reverence, like it was made of glass, and pinned it up with a magnet shaped like a star. It covered something underneath. An old warning slip. Faded. Familiar. Her fingers lingered on the paper, as if drawing strength from her child's faith in her. Then she glanced at the mirror beside the sink. Her smile returned, refined, automatic, but her eyes betrayed her once again. They weren't tired from work, they were tired from pretending. She ran a finger beneath each eye, took a breath so deep it almost shook her, and straightened her name tag. Then she turned back toward the floor. Each step forward was an act of endurance, a quiet resistance, her spine held upright by a crayon drawing in a locker and the memory of a promise made in silence. To keep going, no matter what. She didn't know someone was watching. But Jackson did, and his heart twisted at the weight of what he saw. He wasn't here to fix a store. He was here to face the truth. Still nothing. The machine blinked, unresponsive. The customer let out a loud, exaggerated sigh that cut through the growing tension like static. Seriously? What kind of store is this? His voice echoed with entitlement. Meera didn't flinch. She kept her tone even, soft. I'm so sorry, sir. Sometimes the system freezes. Let me try again manually. He rolled his eyes in a full arc, lips curling into a grimace. Unbelievable. What a waste of time. Her fingers hovered over the buttons, slower now, not from hesitation, but exhaustion. Her smile stayed, plastered on like armor. Behind him, the line tightened. Irritation was contagious, and it was spreading. Then came the voice, loud, abrupt, unnecessary. Meera, Gordon said, stepping in from the side like he'd been waiting for his cue. He didn't look at her. Didn't have to. This is the third time this week. She opened her mouth, the beginning of a defense on her tongue, but he cut her off. Our brand is built on trust, on smooth experiences. You need to react better. Her shoulders dropped, not in defeat, but in surrender. She nodded once, voice barely audible. Yes, sir. The machine beeped, transaction finally complete. The customer walked off without a word. No thank you. No eye contact. From aisle 4, Jackson watched it all. There had been no true system error, nothing that warranted blame. He opened his notebook and wrote one word in capital letters. Reblamed. In the stockroom later, Meera stood near the crowded schedule board, her fingers clenched so tightly they turned pale. Her voice, when she spoke, was barely a breeze. Gordon, she said, I need to leave 1 hour early today, just one. My mom has a hospital checkup. She didn't offer a sob story, just the truth, simple, honest. I'll stay late tomorrow, she added quickly, hopeful. Claire said she could cover. He didn't look up from his tablet. Not ideal, Meera. She hesitated. She already agreed. He raised a hand like a gavel. It's not about coverage. You've looked drained lately. That affects customer energy. She blinked. I'm still showing up, she said softly. Still doing my job. Barely, he replied, cold. We need faces that inspire energy, not sympathy. The words landed like a cold slap. She said nothing, just breathed, held it in like a fragile bubble of composure. Then, her voice barely there. I understand. She turned and walked away, her steps slow, each one weighed down by more than fatigue. Jackson watched from the shadows of the hallway. His clipboard hung still in his hand, but something inside him shifted. Something personal, something that couldn't be shaken off. So he came back, day after day, same cap, same coat, just another customer blending into the crowd. He studied the rhythm of the store like it was a language. Meera, he noticed, moved like part of the building. No one thanked her for the extra tasks. No one asked her to cover those missed breaks, but she did, quietly, consistently. He watched her kneel to clean a juice spill from aisle 5 without hesitation. Watched her guide an elderly man through the self-checkout, her voice calm, her patience limitless. No spotlight, no recognition. Just another invisible act of grace. He wrote in his notebook, "Meera takes on extra, zero recognition. No one noticed until something broke." But Jackson did. A half-sealed milk carton tipped sideways on the belt. A slow, silent spill began pooling near the scanner. The customer didn't even look up, his eyes glued to his phone. But Meera noticed instantly. One hand reached for napkins, the other kept scanning, all while saying, "Sorry about that," with a smile soft enough to soothe, but firm enough to carry the moment. The man nodded, distracted, and walked off. Meera wiped the belt twice, once for the mess, once for dignity. She tossed the soaked napkins, then stepped right back into rhythm. No praise, no pause, no reward. Jackson underlined 3 words in his notebook. Grace under pressure, then circled them twice. That evening, Jackson stepped into the self-service kiosk section. He tapped through the touch screen as if browsing weekly specials, but his eyes weren't on discounts. He accessed a back-end portal with an old maintenance login, the kind no one else remembered. Meera Dawson. Her schedule loaded, 4 straight days, 8-hour shifts, no breaks logged, no lunch times requested, no adjustments. Just one comment from Gordon. Maintains energy without pause, reliable. Jackson stared at the screen. Not with admiration, with disbelief. Through the glass of the break room window, he saw her, refilling the stack of paper cups beside the water cooler. Alone, forgotten. He didn't need more evidence. He needed answers. Across the store, Meera checked her phone between customers. A message from the clinic. Final payment due. 48 hours. Balance, $327.50. She stared at it for a beat, her thumb hovering. Then she closed it, exhaled quietly, and opened the employee portal to confirm her hours. One shift, Thursday, was gone. Just gone. No explanation, no notice, no apology. Her heart dropped. That shift was supposed to cover her mother's medication. Without it, they'd fall short. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She just logged out, slowly, and turned as a customer waved from register 4. She smiled. Jackson saw her reflection in the glass. For a moment, the mask slipped. Panic. Deep, brief, flickering panic in those tired eyes. 48 hours. No safety net. Still standing. Still smiling. Jackson lingered near the bottled water display. Beside him, a young stalker organized cans. Jackson asked low and quiet, the woman at register 3, Meera, "Is she always like that?" The kid looked up, then nodded. "Yeah, always." Jackson waited. The young man added, voice lower now, thoughtful, "She doesn't complain, never asks for help, not even when it's rough." Jackson pressed gently. "And when it is rough?" The kid's smile was small, sad. "Meera doesn't cry. Not here. She just goes quiet." He tapped his chest lightly. "You can see it though. It's in there, like if she lets go for even a second, she might fall apart." Jackson turned toward the front. Meera handed a receipt to a woman juggling 2 toddlers, still smiling, still present. But now Jackson knew. That wasn't strength. It was survival. The bathroom was empty. The mirror cracked at the corner, lights buzzing overhead, cold tiles beneath her feet. Meera stood at the sink, hands under running water, not washing, just letting it flow. Her name tag hung crooked, her shoulders bent under invisible weight. They were committed to their She looked up at her reflection. What stared back wasn't broken, but it wasn't whole either. Her lips moved, voice just loud enough to echo. Just get through today. And somehow that was enough to step back out, still standing, still smiling, but something in the air had shifted. Jackson felt it, and this time, he wouldn't walk away. Her fingers clutched the edge of the sink, skin stretched tight over bone, knuckles whitening with the strain. The cold porcelain pressed back against her grip like it too wanted her to let go. Her breath came shallow, controlled. One inhale too deep and everything might spill out. Then, with slow, deliberate effort, Meera fixed her name tag, smoothed the loose strands of hair behind her ears, raised the corners of her mouth in a mechanical mimicry of joy, not because she felt it, but because she'd trained her face to remember how. That smile wasn't strength. It was survival. She dried her hands on a paper towel that tore halfway through and walked out like nothing was cracked. One more shift, one more mask. No one would know. No one ever did. That night, Jackson sat in a corner booth of a run-down diner across the street. The coffee beside him had long gone cold. His laptop screen glowed in the dim light, illuminating the quiet ache in his eyes. He logged in with executive credentials, searched the name that hadn't left his mind all day, Meera Dawson. Her employee profile loaded. He scrolled through months of data, performance notes, reviews, timestamps. 3 months ago, top-tier engagement, weekly customer compliments. 2 months ago, reliable, consistent, positive energy. Last month, slipping, less enthusiastic, needs reevaluation. The words were bolded, final. No context, no empathy. Just a shift in tone, as sterile as it was cruel. The data told a story, but it wasn't hers. Jackson dug deeper. Her hours had dropped, bonuses erased, ratings slipped, not because her work had faltered, but because someone decided she didn't shine brightly enough on a camera feed. The cursor blinked beside her name, and for the first time Jackson felt a slow, rising fury burn beneath his ribs. She wasn't failing. She was being erased. The next morning, he accessed limited store analytics, just enough access to poke around. Inside a folder labeled Employee Engagement Metrics, one file caught his eye. Smile Compliance, Zone 3. The report was generated by AI. It tracked facial movement, emotional expression, engagement scores, cold, calculated metrics overlaid with footage from the store's cameras. Each employee had a percentage. Meera's score had plummeted. Not because she had stopped doing her job, but because for 2 shifts, her face hadn't smiled wide enough. Her exhaustion had peeked through, and the system punished her for it. Then came a note from Gordon. Use smile data to rotate shifts. Low-energy staff should be reassigned or cut. Jackson stared at the words, unmoving. This wasn't management, this was digital puppeteering. Not tracking service, tracking survival. He opened the latest rankings, rows of names, color-coded by smile compliance. Red meant at risk, gray meant safe. Meera Dawson, top of the list, highlighted in red. He blinked, refreshed the page, same result. The note attached, smile detected, eye engagement low, lacks authenticity. Translation: her fatigue was visible. Her pain wasn't pretty enough for the brand. Jackson clenched the table edge. He had never approved this policy, this metric, and yet, here it was, silently destroying the people his company claimed to value. Meera was being punished every single day for not smiling the way the system demanded. Back in the store, a man at Register 3 handed Meera a $50.00 bill. She scanned 2 items, paused, then double-counted. He had overpaid by $20.00. "Sir," she said gently, offering the bill back. You gave me too much. He blinked, surprised, smiled. Didn't even notice. She nodded once, returned the money, and completed the transaction with quiet grace. As he walked away, Gordon stepped behind the counter. No greeting, no acknowledgement, just a glance, then a scribble in his notepad. Meera lacks upsell instinct, not flexible, soft on profit. Jackson stood nearby, a few steps away, invisible but very present. His heart clenched at the irony. Honesty, labeled as a flaw. Integrity, viewed as weakness. He watched Meera fold the receipt with steady fingers, smile still intact. She didn't know doing the right thing had cost her again. Behind the store, near the loading dock, 2 employees stood whispering. Liam held a shift sheet, voice low but earnest. Hey Gordon, I was hoping to swap my Thursday with Meera. She needs the hours. I could use the morning off. Gordon didn't even look up. No. Liam frowned. But it's approved coverage. I'm not asking for fewer hours. Gordon's voice sharpened. That's not the issue. Then bluntly, she's not exactly the kind of employee we reward with flexibility. Liam hesitated, but stop pushing if you want to stay on the schedule. Jackson stood just out of sight near the stockroom, fists buried in his coat pockets. Silent rage burned in his chest. Meera didn't even know someone had tried to help her, didn't know she'd been quietly labeled unworthy, and the worst part, she'd never be told why. The break room door creaked slightly ajar. Jackson paused in the hall. Inside, Gordon spoke to another supervisor in a voice meant to stay hidden, but it wasn't quiet enough. She's fooling everyone, Gordon muttered, unfolding a paper. Smile all you want, but Meera's draining the floor. The other man didn't answer. Gordon continued, voice colder now. She's not struggling, she's performing, that's what she does, acts like a victim. He flipped another page, scoffing. Don't trust the face. That smile's a mask. She's not loyal, just good at pretending to be weak. Jackson didn't breathe. The words sank deeper than any report. This wasn't about performance. It was personal, intentional, poisonous. He stepped back slowly, heart pounding like a warning bell. That would be the last lie he allowed to go unchallenged. In the break room, Meera sat with her phone in her lap. The screen glowed. Final payment due, tomorrow, 5:00 p.m. The hospital bill. Her mother's. Every shift had chipped away at it, 1 hour at a time. She opened the scheduling app, checked Thursday's shift, 2:00 p.m. But her name was gone. She blinked, refreshed. Still gone. A new message appeared. Shift reassigned. Store needs adjusted. No warning, no conversation, just deleted. Her chest tightened. She pressed a hand over her heart, willing herself not to break. That shift was groceries, gas, medication. It was hope. Now it was gone. Outside the door, Jackson heard the quiet whisper leave her lips. Not today, not now. That night he returned to the scheduling terminal, opened Thursday's roster. The shift Meera had lost was still there, same time, same duties. But a new name had taken her place, Carly Benson. He paused. That name rang familiar. A quick directory search confirmed. Carly Benson, hired 2 weeks ago, no prior experience, no full onboarding. Emergency contact, Gordon Taylor. Relationship, domestic partner. Jackson leaned back, hands cold. This wasn't a mistake. This was favoritism, quiet, targeted, cruel. He stared at the screen, fury boiling under his skin. Meera wasn't being managed. She was being sacrificed, and Jackson was done watching. Jackson stood in the dim corner near the emergency exit, cloaked in the soft shadows of the stockroom. He didn't move, didn't breathe too loud. He just listened. And what he heard cracked something inside him. A soft, uneven sound echoed from the far side. Breathing, fragile, barely held together. Then came a voice. Low, splintered. "I don't know what else to do." It was Meera. She was seated on a stack of shrink-wrapped pallets, knees tucked up, her phone clutched between trembling hands, her head bowed like a woman in mourning. All of Meera was in the car. 2 drivers, one have tried everything, skipped meals, took every shift, and now? It's gone. Her voice fractured mid-sentence. Then, almost too faint to hear, just a breath over a whisper. Please, just hold on. One more day." She covered her face. Her shoulders heaved with sobs, the kind that come from a soul too tired to scream. Then the words that would stay with Jackson forever came out like a plea to the universe. "God, please don't take her. I don't even know if Mom will make it through the night." And just like that, the illusion Jackson had held, that watching from the sidelines could somehow be enough, shattered completely. He stepped back from the door, slow, silent. His chest felt like a vice had closed around it. His eyes burned, but he didn't wipe them, let the tears come. They belonged to a truth he had refused to see for too long. Outside, the night air hit him with a jolt. The parking lot was empty. Wind cut through his coat, but he stood still, staring up at the glowing sign above the building. His name still hung there, bold, backlit, but tonight it felt like it belonged to a stranger. His hands curled into fists at his sides, nails digging into his palms. "No more," he whispered to the dark, his voice low but final. "Tomorrow I stop watching." He turned from the light and walked into the shadows. Each step heavy, but purposeful. Something inside him had changed. The morning rush began like any other, scanning beeps, coffee brewing, feet shuffling through routines. When at exactly 9:00 a.m. the glass doors slid open and Jackson walked in. No cap, no worn jacket. This time he wore a crisp charcoal suit, tailored, quiet authority wrapped in thread and poise, blue tie, polished shoes, every step calm, deliberate. He headed straight for the service counter. Gordon stood there, skimming shift notes, still king of his castle. Until now. "You lost, sir?" Gordon asked, not even glancing up. The team. Jackson reached into his inner coat pocket, pulled out a slim engraved metal badge, and placed it gently on the counter. The sound was soft, but it hit like thunder. Gordon glanced down. Froze. Jackson Hale, Chief Executive Officer. The clipboard slipped from his hand. The air around them thickened. Stillness swept across the store like a tidal wave. At register 3, Meera's hand froze mid-scan. Liam backed away from the aisle. One by one, heads turned. Silence consumed the room. No one moved. No one dared speak. The man who had watched in silence for days was no longer hidden, and now he was being seen. Gordon opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His eyes darted between the badge and Jackson's face, desperately searching for a way to rewrite what had already been written. Jackson didn't blink. "I've seen enough," he said. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It cut through the store like cold steel. The weight of it was undeniable. Meera stood frozen. Liam's hand tightened around a shelf. Fear rippled through the staff like a current. Gordon tried again, panic peeking through his practiced confidence. "Sir, if this is about a misunderstanding..." Jackson raised one hand. Firm, calm, final. No more stories, no more metrics. I've been in this store for days. I watched. I listened." He turned, gaze sweeping the room. "And what I saw," he said slowly, "broke every value this company was built on." Gordon paled. His lips moved, but no sound followed. For the first time, the balance of power in that building had shifted, and everyone felt it. Jackson remained at the center, unmoving, like gravity itself had changed course. He pulled out his phone, calm, precise, a few quick taps, then lifted it to his ear. "Harper, it's me. I need you at store 12, now." He enticed by pause. "No, not tomorrow, within the hour." His eyes flicked toward Gordon, who stood like a statue trying to unfreeze. Jackson's voice lowered, still steady. "We're having a conversation about leadership, and who should never be allowed to wear that title again." He ended the call. Then, quieter, almost to himself, he added, "This isn't just about fixing the floor, it's about rebuilding trust." He didn't raise his voice. But every employee knew the world they had worked in yesterday was gone. Jackson stepped behind the counter, in his hand a folded sheet of paper. He opened it slowly, placed it in front of Gordon. It was the note. The anonymous one. Black ink, creased edges. A line circled in red, trembling in its truth. "We have to smile just to survive." No one breathed. The store felt like it had stopped spinning. Across the room, Meera's eyes widened. She recognized it instantly. Her fingers gripped the register. Jackson looked around, not with anger, but with sorrow, and said, "This came to me weeks ago. At the time, I didn't know where it came from." He paused, letting his gaze settle on the tired faces around him. "But now I do." He didn't need to name her. Everyone already knew. Because across the floor, Meera no longer stood invisible. She stood seen. Jackson turned back to Gordon. His voice was calm. "But this time, it was absolute. As of now, you are suspended from duty, effective immediately." The words landed in the room like the final note of a long, dissonant song. But the reaction wasn't explosive. It didn't need to be. A soft clap echoed from the back, then another, and another. Not a celebration, a release. For the first time, someone had said aloud what everyone had whispered behind closed doors, in low voices, after long shifts. Enough. Gordon stood still, stunned. He turned, seeking a single ally, but every gaze dropped or turned away. Not one person stepped forward to defend him. He opened his mouth and closed it again. Silence was all that was left. Jackson stepped aside, clearing the path. "This isn't revenge," he said gently. "It's restoration." Gordon walked out slowly, his steps no longer heavy with power, but with consequence. And as the door closed behind him, something lifted in the air. Shoulders straightened, breath came easier, and where silence once meant fear, it now meant relief. Near the stockroom, Meera still stood frozen, unsure if what had happened was real. Jackson approached, quiet but grounded. "I didn't choose you," he said. She blinked, startled. "I only confirmed what you had already earned. You were worthy long before I showed up." Meera's lips parted, but no words formed. Just a soft inhale, like someone relearning how to breathe without tension. "You stood tall when it cost you everything," Jackson said. "You gave more than was asked, and you never let bitterness win." Her eyes welled, and she dropped her gaze. "But I cried," she whispered, almost ashamed, "in front of customers." "And still served them with grace," he said. "That's not weakness." A long, quiet pause sat between them. It didn't demand words. It asked only to be felt. Near the break room, staff had gathered, murmurs filling the air, uncertain, expectant. Jackson stepped forward. "I've made a decision," he said, voice steady but kind. "This store needs someone who understands what it means to lead, from the floor up." He turned to Meera. "I'm appointing you interim store manager, effective immediately." A stunned hush blanketed the room. Meera took a small step back, her voice barely audible. "But I'm not qualified." Jackson shook his head slowly. "You're more than qualified. You've already been leading, quietly, consistently. Now it's time the title caught up to the truth." A moment passed. Then one clap. Then another. No fanfare, just the sound of something long overdue finding its way home. As the room returned to motion, Meera stood at the edge, arms folded, staring at her name tag in her hand. She didn't speak until Jackson walked over. "I'm not sure I can do this," she said quietly, her voice almost swallowed by the fume of returning life. "You're not supposed to be sure," Jackson replied. "The ones who are truly ready to lead rarely feel ready at all." She didn't answer, but her fingers closed slowly around the name tag, not in certainty, but in something better, a beginning. Later, in the quiet of the office, Meera stepped inside. Same chair, same desk Gordon once sat at. But everything felt different now. Airier. Lighter. "Hut. No grand gesture, just a slow breath." She unpacked her bag, then pulled out a worn, creased piece of paper, scribbled in thick black marker. She taped it to the wall above the shift schedule. "Smiles are a right, not a rule. Simple, honest, unshakable." She sat down, not to command, but to start over. Outside her window, the store moved like always, but now it moved with dignity. The screen glowed, the schedule blinked open, rows of names, shifts, codes, the same system that once buried her. She leaned in, fingers poised. She moved hours away from exhausted hands, added breaks that had disappeared, balanced weekends. Names once overlooked now appeared front and center. Each adjustment came with a whisper she spoke to herself. Balance, fairness, dignity. Then she paused on one name. Her own. 6-day stretch, no breaks. She smiled faintly, shook her head and rewrote it. 4 days. Mid-shifts. 1 full weekend off. Not because she needed mercy, but because leadership is earned and modeled. She saved the schedule and leaned back. The screen didn't show power. It showed kindness. Out on the floor, something had shifted. The store wasn't louder or busier. It was warmer. Employees walked taller, smiles returned, not plastic but real. Breaks were honored, conversations weren't whispered anymore. They echoed softly through the aisles. At register 4, Liam knelt to help an elderly woman load her bag. Do you need anything else today, ma'am?" She blinked, her voice caught in her throat. "No one's asked me that in years." She clutched the bag, blinking back tears that weren't about the groceries. Meera watched from a distance, not to correct, just to see. This wasn't about authority, it was about humanity. At the end of aisle 3, a little girl held a cereal box too big for her arms. She looked unsure, nervous. Meera crouched gently, offered a sticker from her pocket, a cartoon bear with shiny eyes. "For you," she said. The girl's face lit up. "Thank you." A smile spread across her lips. Bright, true. Meera smiled back. Not the brittle professional curves she'd worn like armor, but something softer, something real. No cameras, no metrics, just a moment rising from somewhere deep within her that she thought had gone numb. This smile wasn't a requirement. It was hers. Across the store, Jackson walked through the doors in a plain hoodie and jeans. No badge, no announcement, just a man passing through. The store buzzed with quiet rhythm, not choreographed, but natural. He passed by the bakery. Meera was showing a new hire how to log inventory. She caught a glimpse of him, met his eyes for a second. She smiled, a nod, then returned to work. No special greeting, no forced "good morning, sir." Liam passed with a box of produce. "Hey, boss," he said, smiling wide, never slowing. Jackson nodded back, hands in his pockets. No one stopped for him, no one stiffened. And that was the point. Because here, now, respect didn't look like silence. It looked like life. The shift ended. Outside, the sky turned a soft golden hue, the light of the fading sun brushing against the world like forgiveness. Meera stepped out the doors, not rushed, not hunched. She moved like someone who finally owned her time. She reached into her bag, found a folded receipt. Paid in full, hospital services. She exhaled. Not just relief, but the kind of quiet that only comes after surviving something invisible and vast. She placed the paper gently in her wallet, next to her son's drawing, then looked up at the sky. Calm eyes, steady breath, lips lifting softly. He smiled, then asked for permission. It simply belonged, because not every smile is joy. Sometimes it's survival. Sometimes we smile to keep our job, to stay small, to disappear just enough to avoid notice. But behind every smile, forced or real, is a story. A choice, a person holding on. So if you've ever smiled just to stay safe, just to make it through, or leave a single dot below, no explanation needed. No words. Because even one dot is enough to say, I've been there too, and someone, somewhere will see it, and know they're not alone. Thank you for staying with us until the very end.